So we are recording. I'm showing my screen and we should be good to go. If I didn't get to say where you were from, I see lots of folks from San Diego. We literally have almost 2,000 people who registered. So we are going to get started here. I have 11:59, so in just a few seconds. So we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, thanks for joining. My name is John Mayfield. I go by the Business Tech Guy. I have been in real estate since the age of 18, 1978. Some of you are quickly trying to calculate how old I am. I don't feel that old, but yes, I'm in my 50s, but I love technology. I'm in the trenches like you. I love real estate, and I absolutely love RPR. I mean, this is a cool product. So we're going to have fun talking about it today. As I mentioned, people are still logging in. We have literally 1,800 and something people who've signed up. If you have questions, we have some folks from NAR, RPR. Valerie, my good friend, is helping me, and she will try to monitor the questions. So feel free to type in your question. Valerie will try to answer that. At the conclusion of the webinar, you will get an email that will give you the opportunity to watch some additional resources and download, I think, the PowerPoint slides. And then I'll have my contact information is on the screen. If you want to watch the webcast from today, I'm recording it. Send me an email. I'll be glad to help you out with that. And anything else, this is a basic course, but I like to take you out into some deep waters, if that's okay, because I love technology and I like to push RPR a little bit. So we'll have fun, and we're going to get right into it right now. So be sure and ask Valerie if you have any questions, because we'll be going as quick as we can, covering a lot of material. I won't have a chance to actually stop and answer your questions specifically, but Valerie's there to help you out. And finally, keep in mind, this is a webinar. We're using technology. Sometimes weird things can happen. Last month, had nothing happen. I was actually doing the webinar from France because I do a lot of work in France. Today I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas in a hotel, so I should be okay with technology, but if for some reason we go down or I lose a connection, don't panic. I'll get right back on. Okay, let's get started, because you guys want to find out about RPR and how you can use it in your business and make more money. Right? That's what we want to talk about. So very quickly, I'm only going to be in a few PowerPoints. We're going to go as quick as possible through these, and then we're going to get right in, and I'm going to show you how to use RPR. But this class actually covers what is RPR, how to use it with buyers and sellers. I'll show you how to create some reports and some basic navigation. And, it's your job to really get in and use RPR and practice with it and play with it. We have a 24-hour, 365-day help desk that's located right here in the United States. They're great people and they can help you out. But it's really a wonderful program. It's not too difficult to use. A lot of times people want to ask me, John, what is RPR? And it's owned by the National Association of Realtors. It's owned by us as members of the National Association of Realtors. And you need to understand that the public doesn't have access to this. There's no consumer access to it. It's strictly owned by the National Association of Realtors to be used by you and I as members of the National Association of Realtors. And it's really this database with lots of information that's being funneled into one database. You may hear the concept called big data heard today or referred to today. And big data really means this. There's data that people are collecting all over the place. Unfortunately, many of us have to go to different websites to get this data. In my MLS, in my local county, you have to go to 3 different websites to get information. Used to have to do that, but we would have to go to 3 different websites through the county courthouse. The assessor has their own portal, the collector has their own portal, and it was like, this is too much. We're going here and there and everywhere. And so what RPR has done is it's aggregating all of this data that you and I need as real estate professionals, and it brings it into one database that we can use as realtors and make our lives a lot easier. Best of all, there's no additional charge. It's included with our dues dollars. And again, there's no public access. It's strictly for realtors. Now, it's not an MLS. And I hear people say to me all the time, oh, John, I think NAR is trying to come up with this national MLS. Well, RPR functions by getting its data from the MLS. So trust me, for a long time into the foreseeable future, this data, RPR needs your MLS because that's where it gets its data, some of its data from the MLS. RPR is not a consumer-facing business model. This is nothing the consumers see and use. It's strictly for you and I as realtors. It's not a listing syndicator. It doesn't redistribute your information. And again, it's available for only members of the National Association of Realtors. So how can you and I use RPR? Well, here's how I use it. I use it to get information. It helps me price properties. I use it as a farming and a prospecting tool. I mean, there's some really cool things you can do to impress buyers and sellers from a farming and a prospecting tool, and it really helps you stand out in a listing presentation or at an open house. I was listening to an MP3 of a digital marketing guy a while back, and he said something on this MP3 as I'm driving down the highway that caught my attention. He made this statement. He said, there's really only one difference between a dollar bill and $100 bill. Now think about that for a moment. It caught my attention. There's only one difference between a dollar bill and a $100 bill. And he said it's the message. One gives you a dollar bill message. The other one gives you a $100 bill message. And when he said that, I realized why I am having so much success with RPR. Because it really gives a message that's much more deeper and richer. And it's literally what I like to say, a $100 bill message from you as a real estate professional. Now, I'm not saying this to try to, let me just say this. I know what my competitors are doing. They go out, when I go up against them on a listing presentation, they go out with their 2 or 3 pages from the multiple listing service. And I'm going in with an 80-page document that's on my iPad, by the way, or my computer that I email to them. I do not print it out. But I have an 80-page report with charts and graphs and information, and the sellers are blown away. And I want you to understand that RPR is going to help you. It's going to leverage you to giving a $100 bill message every time. So you can use RPR in all of these ways and so much more. Now, the last slide that I want to talk about, and we're going to get right into it, is something that we're already familiar with, an AVM and an RVM. Most of you might not realize you're familiar with what an AVM is. It's an automated valuation model. I'm showing this property a while back, and the gentleman wanted to look at this property, and he called me up. We set the appointment. I get to the house, get out of my car. I say, "Hi, I'm John Mayfield. It's really nice to meet you." And he puts his hands on his hips, and he gives me this really mean look, and he says, "How come this house is only worth such and such on such and such website?" Now, you guys know what I'm talking about. And I said, "That's a great question, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Because that website you were looking at that gave you that automated valuation model is, first of all, a computer. And secondly, it only has access to public information. It's limited to the information it has. See, in Missouri and most states, uh, we don't have to report to the courthouse what properties sell for. Therefore, that automated valuation model that gentleman looked at is really skewed because it doesn't have a lot of data to work with. The problem is people want automated valuation models. Uh, Lots of banks, insurance companies, county assessors, they all need to know what property values are worth. And so there are companies that provide these automated valuation models, and it's really starting to play havoc on the industry and our profession as real estate professionals. So the National Association of Realtors said, if this is such a needed product, we could probably deliver a much better product because we have access to the MLS, the multiple listing service, which has many more sold properties, all of the actives and off markets, and we can come up with our own automated valuation model. We'll call it the Realtor's Valuation Model, and we can help bring some better stability and a higher accuracy into this arena of automated valuations. So that's really why RPRs come about. I could go into lots more of rationales and reasons, but the gist of it is this is a product that's needed in the marketplace. With the internet, with computers and laptops, is something that's needed and that's out there. And that's why RPR has come about. And the great thing is, our leaders at the National Association of Realtors have developed this really cool pricing matrix, and now they're letting us use it and use our experience and our knowledge to really fine tune and make this a great program. So let's jump over into RPR. And again, feel free to ask any questions to Valerie. I'm going to try to go at a good speed, but not go too fast. But I want to make sure that you understand how to use RPR. We have other courses that dive a little deeper into RPR, but I think I'll be able to give you some really good explanations and tools to get you started. So I want to first of all bring my little annotation tool up here. And first thing a lot of folks want to know is, I was just at an office this morning doing a live presentation here in Arkansas, and their agents were seeing the multiple listing service logo. And someone asked me, they said, I'm not seeing the Mayfield logo, I'm seeing the MLS logo. And I said, well, that's because your broker needs to register their logo with RPR, and it's free of charge. So if you log in and you're seeing the MLS logo, be sure and tell your broker they have the opportunity and can have this branded with their logo at no charge, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. So that's your logo area right there. And then we want to take a look over here and at this little gear right over here. That's where you're going to set up your profile. So you may want to spend some time to going into the gear icon and making sure that your photo is uploaded, that you have all of this information completed correctly, your office address, your phone number. A lot of that will populate over from your MLS, but when you print your reports out, you want all of this to be correct and accurate and to look professional. So check your email, check your cell phone. I know a lot of times in our board, we have some folks who they put their office phone number in the phone number slot in the MLS, and you can't get a hold of them. You're trying to show a property or negotiate a contract. And so it would really help if you made sure all of that was correct. And then you'll want to set up your MLS and that information. It's not too difficult to do, but again, that is going to be where the gear icon is over in the top right corner right there. So be sure you set that up. Now, I'm going to get in to where I do most of my work in RPR, and that's right along here. You can see You've got lots of options up here, but I just want you to know from my point of view, this is where we're going to do the most of our work, is in this, right in the center of the screen here. We have a couple of options that we can look at. First of all, we have all properties. That's a menu. And we have a menu that says for sale. Now, this is probably not the technical correct way to maybe the programmer may not technically tell me this is correct, but it's the easiest way for me to explain it. If you look at all properties, I like for you to consider or think that you're searching the county courthouse records, okay? Because all properties will actually search all of the parcels that are located within RPR that are in the county courthouse database. Now, I had an appointment of this last year. I sold some property for some people that I knew. They had lived in the home since 1954. I grew up down the street from them. Their house had never been for sale ever until last summer when I listed it. When I went to do a CMA on that property, I searched all properties and I put their address in, and their property came right up for me, including RPR even giving me a suggested list price. Now, that's what's great about RPR, is that I didn't, in my MLS, I would have never been able to find information on that property, more or less had a price evaluation. So you want to search all properties if you're looking for a property that's not currently on the market. The for sale icon or menu is really similar to searching your MLS. That's the way I like to distinguish the two. So think of all properties as you really want to go in and look at the courthouse records. Those could be listed for sale. They could not be listed for sale. And think of the for sale menu as really searching your MLS, if that makes sense. Now, you'll notice that we have the option to also search neighborhoods, and I have some of this pulled up for you we can look at. You can even search school districts, and one of my favorite tabs, if we had an hour or two afterwards, I could show you some stuff that would literally you'd be jazzed up about, because there's some things you can do with market and activity and farming and market areas that just blow you away. But we'll try to get into a little bit of that. But if not, send me an email and we'll talk about that and try to set up a separate activity, or I maybe have a webinar on that. But market activity is a really cool place you can do some work as well. Okay, let's start out. And I'm going to move that over. Let's start out and search properties. So I want you to understand you can search by city, and notice pardon me, I have a little bit of an allergy issue going on here, so you can search by city, and notice that it auto-populates. It's asking me, did you mean city by the sea in Texas or city of industry, California? I can type in Phoenix, and you can see that this auto-populates, which is really nice. You can even search by county. So my county is St. Francis, and as I type in St. Francis, it auto-populates. You can see that right there. I can even search by zip code. So as I type in 63640, it immediately knows that I'm in Farmington. As I back out, it's giving me more choices for zip codes. So everything is the ability to auto-populate. You can search by MLS IDs. Yesterday or day before yesterday, I typed in an MLS ID. It took me right to the property I needed. So MLS ID, there's some other choices, and you can even type in the street address. So if I wanted to type in a specific address, I can do that, hit the search button, and it will take me right to that property. Now you also have the ability over on the right you can see if we wanted to narrow our search by a county or a zip code and by a price range, we can do that. And I can also make my search more advanced. So if you really want to drill down and say, John, I just want to look for foreclosures or pre-foreclosures in my zip code, guess what? You can do that right here. So I'll go back to the basic search, and just to recap what I was doing there, you can set up your search parameter by address, city, zip code, county, MLS ID. Of course, if you're doing a wider, broader search, you can search by price range, bedrooms, baths, and you can go into the advanced tab and even do some more specific, bigger searches in that direction as well. Now again, all properties, we're searching kind of the courthouse. Those are going to be listed and not listed properties. For sale is the MLS. I did a search recently in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I pulled these up. Now, what's interesting about the search parameter, when you search and I searched this specific zip code in Scottsdale, Arizona, you can see that there were 390 properties in this zip code. I can, first of all, if I want to show as many as 20, 50, or 100, I can do that. It will auto-populate to 10. And I can also sort the list. So if I'm wanting to drill down by most expensive in this zip code or least expensive, I can sort my list here, bedrooms, baths, and so forth. You also have the ability, once you get into the search, on the left-hand side where you could make some changes. So let's just take this and let's uncheck non-distressed and apply. In other words, we're looking in this zip code for any foreclosures or pre-foreclosures, and we have 16. Now, you will notice these are highlighted with a red flag. That indicates these are pre-foreclosures. And that's one thing that I really like about RPR is everything's color coordinated or color coded, I guess I should say. You have light blue for sale, dark blue is sale pending, red and is foreclosure, a wine, dark red is pending foreclosure. And don't worry, right over here on the right hand side below the map, you will always have the explanation of the color coding. So you don't have to memorize these, but they will also tell you, and you can just look over here that red means distressed, wine means that it's pending distressed. So you have this ability. Now I can go back and search for everything in that location. You have the ability that once you go in and search your zip code to make changes on the fly over here on the left as to if you want to drill down a little more specific and then select apply. You can even search by keywords. So if you were in a lake resort and you were looking for lakefront and you wanted to type in lakefront, you could add that and search that parameter as well. You also have the ability to do map searching, and I'm finding this more and more helpful in my business as a real estate professional. So anytime I go into a zip code in my area, you notice there's a small map here on the right-hand side. If I select the bigger map, I can now look at this zip code in a larger area. Perhaps I have someone that says they want this zip code, and then we're talking and they say to me, well, actually what we really wanted, John, is this specific school district. Notice I'm in the bigger map. I can go up here to show geographies right above the map, and now I can drill down and I can go into the 6th through the 8th grade school district, and they say to me, we really want Greyhawk Elementary School. All I have to do is click on that. I'm right in Greyhawk, and I can search that specific area. Or perhaps they say, we'll take Greyhawk and we'll also take this other school district, desert trails, I can just highlight both of those. So keep in mind that, as sometimes we understand buyers tell you one thing and then you start working with them, you're figuring out more of what they're really looking for. Again, you have this option to really drill down and look at zip codes, school districts, and some more. You have the ability as well, and I use this feature a lot, to map an area. So I may go in, I'm going to take off the geographies, and sometimes someone may say, that they're wanting to sit this particular subdivision. I can draw a map around this subdivision just like this. And now I could search in that area. And remember a minute ago when I was talking about market activity reports and that I really could show you some things that would rock in that area? Look at this. I can go into a subdivision, highlight that subdivision, and then save it. That's what I want you to do first. Don't search it. Select Save and give this a name. I'm just going to call this John's Subdivision. Okay? And I'm going to select OK. Now, let's go back to the home screen here at NAR RPR. So I'm at the home screen. And you know what? I forgot. I should have told you that. That's the website address, narrpr.com. At the very, very beginning. A lot of your MLSs will have a hyperlink that you can go into that with. But it's NAR for National Association of Realtors. RPR.com is going to take you to the portal. I'm at the home page. Look what's right here on the left-hand side of this big menu. My saved area. And if I scroll down, there's John's subdivision I just created. And it's going to search inside John's subdivision to give me all of the lowdown and information that's going on in that subdivision. And now I can go up to Reports, and I can go down to Market Activity. It's already highlighted. I'll select More Details, and I can change this to any parameter I want, but I want to do the past month. Everything's checked on this when you go there. I like to uncheck expired and open houses. And now I'm going to run that report. I can close this screen and go on and work in RPR. Now, what did I just do? If you want to make money this year, you want to take your business to the next level, you're going to farm some subdivisions. I've been selling real estate since I was 18. I've made thousands of dollars farming subdivisions. Why do I do that? Because after a while, what do they think if you're sending them information and providing relevant value to them month in and month out? They begin to think of you as the expert, that you're the person to go to for real estate. Read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. And in his book, you'll read a little thing about the law of fundamental attribution error, the law of FAE. It basically means perception is reality. So now I'm going to take this report that has all of this information about what's going on in the market, what's happening, what's sold, and I'm going to put that on my website, and I'm going to send postcards out. And if I'm a really sharp real estate professional, I'm going to get the email addresses, or try to, in that marketplace, and I'm going to drive people to my website so that they can every month find out what has happened in their subdivision, what's going on. And trust me, over time, people will love that report. They will appreciate you sending them the information. You'll be driving traffic to your website, and you will become the go-to person to get business in that subdivision. and you're using a free tool called RPR, generating a really professional looking report for free. So that's what I mean by being able to use those market activity reports. And that's the screen over here we were doing. But what I basically did was we went into this property and we just actually searched the neighborhood and went a little bit further out and drew a map and saved it. So let's go into this 16635 North 59th Place in Scottsdale, Arizona, and let's take a look at a couple of things on how you might use this in pricing property. Well, a couple of things I want to go over. I'm going to show you a lot of stuff on this page, and then we're going to make some adjustments to this. We're going to really do a CMA, but I want to show you that, first of all, there are lots of things up here we can do regarding this property. So we have history, we have charts, we can refine the value. We're going to do all of that. Notice this house is listed for $439,900. But the current RVM is $412,480. What does that tell you as a real estate professional? For some reason, I'm thinking about that Far Side cartoon. If you like the Far Side, and I remember one where all the skunks were in the classroom. They were all skunks, and the teacher was a skunk, and the teacher said, "Stinking caps on, everyone, stinking caps." Sorry. We got to have a little humor on the webinar too, right? We got to have some fun. Well, it's telling me that if this house is listed for $439,900, the computer, and keep in mind, this is just a computer giving us an algorithm, says we think it's only worth $412,000. Now, there's some problems here, though. I mean, first of all, let me back up and say this. In my experience, and I use RPR 95 to 100% of the time when I'm doing CMAs, almost every time. I start with RPR, and there's those weird instances where maybe I got to jump over to the MLS, and sometimes you just have difficulty coming up with a price. But in my experience of using RPR, this number right here, the RVM, remember that? Realtor valuation model using public data and the MLS data. It's 90% of the time, 85, 90% of the time, it's right in line with what my gut feeling is that house probably is worth. Not always, but a lot. So this is telling me this house could be priced a little too high. However, it's a computer. The computer doesn't know if when you walk in that house, they've put brand new granite countertops in, that they've totally, have it decorated and it shows really good. The computer has no knowledge if that home smells bad because they have a lot of animals inside. And the computer doesn't know if the next door neighbors have cars lined up or pit bulls in the backyard that are barking every time you go outside. The computer's just saying, based on the data we have, we think it's worth this much money. So you and I have to go in and we have to use our experience and our knowledge of the marketplace to make this better. Good example is this past Saturday, I went out to look at a house for some folks, and the RVM came in at 113 in my area. And that's actually what I thought, this is odd because that's exactly what I thought this house is probably going to come in at. But when I went inside the house, it blew me away. It was so nice. And I mean, they had done a lot of upgrades. And by the time I got finished refining the value, we were up to 130. And I felt really confident and comfortable at 130. So keep in mind, this is just the computer price. But we're going to do some more work on this, okay? Now, if you ever say, what did John say the RVM meant? All you have to do is put your mouse over the little I, and RPR will give you the footnote for that. So let's scroll down. We've got a 5-star confidence. I can see here that in the last month, the RVM has gone down a little bit. In the last 12 months, the market's up almost 5 points, 4.5%. So that's good. I can see the house last sold for 304, and I can see some information here. I can go down and see the pictures of the home. It looks like a beautiful home. I can scroll on down. I can add notes if I want to, so I can type notes here. I cannot do that in my MLS. A lot of times I'm a very visual person. I like to add notes, and I can save those. I can even upload photos, and I do some really cool stuff with the mobile phone with uploading photos and adding notes. Now I have the homeowner's information. The other day I saw an empty house, and I wanted to check on it because I wanted to try to send the seller a note or a letter inquiring if they might be interested in selling. Look at this, the mailing address. It's all pulled right over into RPR. I had the mobile app. I was out front of that house. I searched by the street address of the house, pulled up the property, had their mailing address in just a matter of seconds. Now I can go down. I have homeowner facts, public listing. If you get inside the house and you say, you know, that did have 5 bedrooms, but they've taken a wall out and it only has 4, you can make changes. And that will only affect your RPR. Nobody else will see those changes. Again, you can add notes to this. I love this chart here. This is part of that messaging. And here's how I use this chart. I actually will uncheck the county and uncheck the state. And now, if I'm working with a buyer or a seller, I actually have a visual of what my subject property looks like compared to the marketplace. Sometimes, and this morning we were looking at a house and the subject property was right up here and the median price range was down here. In this example, the sellers need to know there's a big gap there between what they're asking and what's going on in their marketplace. So it's a good little map. It can be a useful tool in trying to explain, for a buyer, this is a comfort. To me, it's a comfort feeling knowing they're not paying more than what the market's supporting there. Again, I have access to the price change history, listing details, all of this information. I have a walkability score, which is popular today, so I've got that information I can provide. There's financing, legal description, and in some cases, you may even find the plat through here. So right here. So now not in every county, but in a lot of places I'm doing RPR, I can download the plat right there. So if I want to download this plat, we can pull it up and take a look at the plat of the property right there. So lots of information, and keep in mind, we're just on the first page. Now, one of my other favorite things to do on this page, 2 things I like to do, I'm going to go over to the bigger map. And as I go into the bigger map, I can now see what's going on in the neighborhood. So here's my subject property right here. But look, I can see properties that are for sale nearby. I can also go down here. So there, and here's something that's sold over here. There's one that's sold around the corner. So you're able to actually look at the neighborhood and what's happening. And if you like a Google view, you can do that. There's really even some of the Google street views are available now. And on the mobile phone, you can do the street view. I tell you what, if there's anything that has impressed me more about working with RPR, it is the fact that they are adding new tools and new enhancements that every time I see them, it just amazes me about how cool this piece of technology is we have. But keep in mind, I'm a tech guy and I've been around since before there was an MLS book. So this kind of stuff excites me because when I can sit down, as I did Saturday, and show my prospects an overhead view of their subdivision and what's going on inside the subdivision, it's pretty impressive to clients and customers. So I have this bigger view. I can even overlay heat maps. Now, what did John just say there? Right below the map, there's a button called heat maps. And I can do a 12-month change in value. Well, look at this. That's interesting. It's light blue, which means property values are going up. In fact, they're probably going up close to 10%, 5 to 10%, which is what we saw earlier when we looked at the first page. So this heat overlay allows us to look at various scenarios to see how are we comparing. If you want to look at cost per square foot, change in value over the last 12 months, if you want to look at average listing price or average sales price, you can even check the flood zones. And those are maps from FEMA. So you can see it's kind of close to a flood zone area there. But all of that is right here. And the one thing you will appreciate about RPR is that everything is footnoted. So whenever you see a chart, a statistic, data, there's a footnote, and RPR tells you here's where we got that information and here's how often we update it. So everything's footnoted. If I go back to the flood zones and I select about, right there, it tells me it pulled that from FEMA. Again, that's all inside the mapping area. You can also go into the mapping and you can draw maps if you want to go drill down in. You can check geographies as we did earlier. You can do drive time and distance. A lot of really neat features. My other favorite feature on this first page, believe it or not, we're still on the first page, is to compare historical records. Over on the right, you can actually access this from the History tab and from this tab. So now I'm able to go into the MLS. Let's just go back to 2005. May not be a picture there, but look, that home sold for $440 in 2005. You can see, in fact, we can go back to 2000, and this will depend on your MLS data, but I can go back, and here's 2011, and I can look at this information all the way down through. So it's pulling from the MLS historical data. I can see that Jason has it listed now. Kyle had it listed back in 2011. And look at the photos. So if I want to see, how have they updated this, we can go through and take a look at pictures just like that. So it's pretty cool to be able to do that. I've found some interesting things when some homes that have had carpet now and hardwood is underneath the carpets that you could see. But that is all under the compare historical records right there. So that's our first page. Now we're going to go over to the second page, which is history. I can see that they took a loan out right back here in what looks like October of 2013. I can see the assessor's valuation over here. Lots of things I can include and look at there. I can look at prior MLS transactions. I actually used this the other day. I was needing to look at a house that had sold, and I logged into RPR by the address. I went to the History tab. I went down here to Prior Sales Transactions, and I could see all of the prior sales transactions right here. Again, you have the ability to add notes. I can look at tax records. I've even, in many instances, can look at the financing. So here's the mortgage records. They took a loan out for $253,000. I was going on a listing appointment a while back, I did my RPR report. I saw where they had taken a pretty hefty loan out not long ago, and I knew going into that presentation that I needed to have that conversation with them. And she told me when we got there, she said, listen, we know we're going to have to bring money to the table. But it was great for me to know that going into the listing presentation, to have that information. If there was any past distressed information, and unfortunately we know Arizona was hit very hard a few years ago, all of that past distressed information is there. It's all public record, and so again, if you remember from the very first part of the webinar, we've got all of this data in all of these places, and what RPR is trying to do is aggregate and bring all of that information into one central database. You have the ability to look at school districts over here, and I can even go in and look more about the neighborhood. So here's the neighborhood. You can see that I have all kinds of housing information. I can actually go in here and look at housing statistics. I can also go in and look at the people from that zip code. So you can go down and I can tell you here that 54.3% of the people vote Republican. Now, where did they get the data? Everything's footnoted. So they tell me where they get that data. So that's your people tab, that's your economy tab. I can even go to quality of life, and I can tell you that there's 180 full days of sun per year in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, to me, that is pretty cool. And all of this information is available. And here's what I did. I just want to show you on my website. And keep in mind, I do more speaking and training and assisting other people. I had 3 offices and a lot of agents, and I work on my own now, and I work with past customers and clients. But on my website, you can go to any community, and I basically took the RPR report, packaged it up in a little program, and now I have a digital magazine that is on my webpage that people can go out and look at these RPR reports. And I can, when I upload the latest report, I can share that on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, send that information out. Again, that's just something you can do to make yourself look a professional, drive traffic to your website. And that's all part of the neighborhood report, which is right over here if you collect more about the neighborhood. And keep in mind, you have access to any neighborhood in the United States. So if you have a customer or a client who's relocating from another area, you should go out and run a report of your zip code that they're moving to and send that report to them. Take those reports with you to open houses. Put them on your website. Share them with your social networks. It really is a great report, and it has some interesting information. Now, we're in the Refine Value tab, and it's 12:46. We've got about 10 minutes left, and we're getting down to the wire, but this we're going to do a quick CMA. It doesn't take very long. And the first thing I want you to think about doing is asking some questions. Saturday, when I went on my listing presentation, I actually pulled RPR up on my iPad, and I just purchased a new iPad Pro, which is the big iPad. I didn't know if I would like it because of the size, but to me, it worked wonderfully, and it really worked great at their kitchen countertop. And I have a hotspot on my phone, so I turned my hotspot on. And I did not use the iPad app, which there is an iPad app that works very good. But on the iPad Pro, the screen's big enough that I just logged into NAR RPR. And we did the RPR report right at their kitchen table. And so we looked at the house, and I took notes down, and I pulled up their property on RPR, and I told them, I said, now here's what the computer says your house is worth, just without doing any adjustments, 113,000. And I said, don't panic. We're going to go in and make there's some more work we need to do before I arrive at my price. And so I came over to this tab on the refined value, and I said, now you've done a lot of improvements to this home and it looks great. Let's just go through what are some things you've done the last couple of years, if we could, and if you could tell me what enhancements you've made and approximately how much that cost. I want to plug that in to the computer system. And they said, well, we remodeled our bathrooms this last year. So I went to bathroom remodel. See, all of the choices are here. They told me when they did this in 15, and he said we spent about $4,000. So I select add, and look what happens when I come up here at the top. RPR gave them $2,546 toward that bathroom remodel. So you really want to spend some time talking to people about what they've done to their property. And ask them, how much did you pay for that? When did you do that? It does a couple of things. First of all, most real estate agents don't do that. I mean, let's just be honest. Secondly, let's go back to what Dale Carnegie said. I love Dale Carnegie, and he said, you can win more friends in 2 months by showing them you're interested in them than you can in 3 years trying to get them interested in you. And I really believe that's true. I had a gentleman that I put a bid out for some work on my website recently, and the person I hired because they asked me a lot of questions about my needs and my wants and my goals for my website. And when I finished with them, when I hired them, and I thought, gosh, John, how well are you doing that as a real estate professional? And I had to remind myself I'd gotten off a little track. And Saturday, I spent time asking those folks the questions. They loved it. I could see it in their eyes and their enthusiasm telling me about what they had done to the home. And I liked it because I was able to fine tune and narrow in on what their house was worth. So spend some time refining the value, adding the improvements. And then again, you were adding your experience and your knowledge. So I took the market conditions and I moved them up just a tad. Yesterday I was in an area and we moved it down a little bit. This is totally your call. Now, the home exterior condition, they needed to do a little bit of work on their house. Not bad outside, but I moved it down a notch. But on the home interior, do you remember me telling you how nice it was? I mean, I moved it all the way to the better scale because they had put new granite countertops in, all new hardwood, refurbished the bathrooms. It really looked nice and it was spotless inside. So this is your ability to make changes. I left the lot size view and privacy alone, and you can see RPRs making calculations for me. Now I move over to the comp analysis, and it's 5 steps. I'm going to confirm the facts. 9 times out of 10, you will just confirm the facts. The second step's to find comps. Let me just say, leave this alone. You can change any of that, but I would just do your search and see what you get. If you don't get a lot of comps, you can make the map larger, in other words, zoom out with the map, change the parameters from 6 months to 12 months. It's your call, but I would try to find comps that are within that parameter. And now I'm just going to add some comps. Now notice if there's a star here, RPR used that in the valuation. But this is where you really get to use your knowledge and your experience of the marketplace. This morning, we were doing a comp analysis for a gentleman, and it was interesting. When we finished, he said, John, that's exactly the price I've always thought it needs to be listed at. It was a home he hasn't been able to sell, but it was interesting going down the comps, hearing them say to me, no, don't use that one. That's not a good comp. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And so you use your experience and your knowledge to find the comps that you want to find. Now you go all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to take your time looking at all your comps. I'm doing this quickly because we're on a webinar. We'll update the valuation. And the last step we need to do is adjust the comps. And so this is, again, where you use your experience and your knowledge. You could say, I'm not familiar with that house. I'm just going to leave it the same. I showed this house, that house. The house I'm trying to appraise is much nicer than that. See how I slide that bar down? This house is a lot better. And so I can go through and make adjustments to my comps, and I could say, this one right here, it's almost identical. It's 2 doors down. Go up here to the top and put that in the first position. That'll move that over to where you can, just a second here, sorry about that. That will move that over to where you can now make a note and say this comp was almost identical to that property. So I'm going to update the valuation and close. And actually the last step is right here. I'm going to edit and put my price, or I can just leave the price RPR comes up with and print the report. Now, I actually then, once I have the report, I don't email it to them unless they're out of state. I run the report, and by the way, I'm going to go up here and select more details. You can uncheck any of these right here if you want to. I just leave them all checked, and I run the report, and I save this into my Dropbox. You can use your computer, and I go out with my iPad, and we just have a grand old time highlighting and annotating and drawing on their report. And I don't go through all 80 pages, but I go through the few pages I need to. And then I email them a copy, and they can print that out if they want to print that out and on. Now you'll see several reports here you can do. There's also a market activity report we talked about, neighborhood report. The property flyer is really an awesome looking report that you can print out, and really a lot of other cool things. I mean, I'm pushing RPR technology wise. I'm doing some really mind-boggling things with it. You need to get in and work around with RPR. It is really a great program. So when that report's ready, sometimes it's 70, 80 pages long. It looks great. You can see over here, you can share reports now through Facebook. There's a commercial side of RPR. If you go up here to the top where it says commercial and you select commercial, it'll take you right over to the commercial. The commercial side has some really interesting reports that you should share with your Chamber of Commerce, maybe with some human resource folks. That's another good neighborhood report you might share with your human resource folks. And then down at the bottom where it says blog, if you select blog, it will take you out to the educational resource. So if you were an agent, a broker, appraiser, find your area, select that, and now this is for brokers. This is where you would enroll to get your logo on all of your agents in your office in RPR. So I've got 3 minutes to spare, but I did not, I made it. I do want to point out here that you do have your recent properties you searched, recent reports. Everything syncs with the RPR app. If you've not downloaded the RPR app, it will be your best friend. I mean, it is like one of my favorite apps on my phone. I use it every day. And we have a whole nother training program on the RPR app. But I want you to leave with this thought and ask yourself this. Am I giving a dollar bill message when I go out to meet with sellers and buyers and provide property reports? Or am I giving them a $100 bill message? After today, there's no excuse why you can't give a $100 bill message. This is a great tool. It's a great product. I test and look at lots of technology. That's what I get paid to speak about. And I'm really passionate about this. Does it have some bugs? Occasionally, yes, you're going to find that. We have online help and chat down below 365. 24/7. They're right here in the United States, but it's a great program. Use it, and I hope more than anything you will go out and score a new listing this week using RPR. My contact information I'll put back up there. If you would like a link to the today's session I recorded, I'll be glad to send that to you. It's john@businesstechguy.com. And if you have any other questions or need some help with RPR, feel free to reach out to me. Really, my last session, we had 800 people on there. I must have received 50 emails and I don't know how many phone calls. I love to talk to you. I love to help you. There's never any charge unless you call me every day, and we'll have to work something out. But I am getting ready to travel, so if you send me an email and I don't get back to you for a few hours, please understand I'm on the road, but I will respond to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you go out and get a listing today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much.